Stephen King spent one single night behind this door. What he saw here gave birth to the most terrifying novel of the 20th century. But his story was only the beginning. This hallway has watched over 100 years of secrets. Every carpet thread, every crack in the wallpaper remembers something. And somewhere down this corridor, the dead are still walking. To understand what happened here, we have to go back. Back to a time before the ghosts, before the horror. Back to a dying man who came to these mountains looking for a miracle. His name was Freeland Oscar Stanley, a brilliant inventor from Massachusetts. At 54 years old, doctors told him he had 12 months to live. Tuberculosis was destroying his lungs. Desperate, Stanley and his wife Flora traveled west to the Rocky Mountains of Colorado. The thin, clean mountain air was said to heal lungs. He arrived here barely able to breathe. Within weeks, something impossible happened. Stanley stopped coughing. He gained weight. He grew strong. The mountain had saved his life, and he decided to thank it by building something extraordinary. Stanley poured his fortune into a palace, a hotel unlike anything the American West had ever seen. He hired hundreds of workers. He imported chandeliers from Europe. He built his dream in the wilderness. The Stanley Hotel opened its doors on July 4, 1909. Overnight, it became the most glamorous destination in the American West. Presidents came here, titans of industry, Hollywood stars. Everyone wanted a piece of paradise. For years, this hotel lived in golden light, nights filled with music, laughter, the clink of champagne glasses. But paradise never lasts forever. And on one stormy night in 1911, the darkness arrived. Her name was Elizabeth Wilson, chief housekeeper at the Stanley, a woman who had served here since opening day. On the night of June 25, 1911, a lightning storm knocked out the power. Elizabeth's job that night was simple: light the gas lamps in every room so the guests wouldn't be left in darkness. She had no way of knowing that a gas leak had been filling room 217 for hours. She struck a single match. What happened next would scar this hotel forever. In that single second, a decade of history, luxury, and celebration was erased by a sound that shattered every window on the floor. The blast tore through the floor of room 217. Elizabeth fell 15 feet into the dining room below, breaking both ankles. Miraculously, impossibly, she survived. But something of her stayed in that room forever. Elizabeth recovered. She returned to work. She served the Stanley for decades more, until her peaceful death in old age. But in death, she did what she had always done in life. She came back to work. Today, room 217 is the most requested room in the hotel. Couples book it a year in advance. They come for the thrill, for the story. They come hoping to meet Elizabeth. Most of them do. They leave for dinner in the grand dining room downstairs. They don't know yet. They don't understand what happens in this room when the door closes. They will find out soon enough. When guests return from dinner, they find their clothes unpacked, folded with precision. Makeup arranged by color, toothbrushes in matching cups. A housekeeper has been at work, but no living housekeeper was here. Some guests smile at this. They thank Elizabeth out loud. They leave her a gift, a coin, a piece of candy. Other guests grab their bags and check out immediately, because Elizabeth is only the first. Night falls. The couple falls asleep. But at some point between midnight and 3 a.m., the wife opens her eyes. Something is lying between them. She can feel the weight. She can hear the breathing. She cannot move. This is what staff call sleeping with Elizabeth. Hundreds of couples have reported it. Always the same story. Always a woman. Always between the partners. Always at 3 in the morning. The hour when the veil is thinnest. Now we travel back again to October 30th, 1974. The hotel is about to close for the winter. Only 2 guests remain, a struggling young writer and his wife. He has published exactly 1 novel. He has written nothing new in months. They had intended to stay somewhere else entirely, but when they drove into Estes Park, every other hotel was closed. Only the Stanley remained open for one last night before winter. The universe was arranging something. They walked down to dinner through hallways that should have been full of guests. Instead, they were alone. The orchestra played for them. The staff served them. The hotel itself seemed to be performing for an audience of 2. Imagine the feeling. 2 young people, alone in a grand hotel closing for the winter. Chandeliers blazing for no one. A string quartet playing in a corner. The sense that the building itself is watching you. After dinner, King walked alone to the hotel bar. A single bartender was on duty. His name was Grady. King couldn't take his eyes off him. There was something wrong about his smile, something that went too deep. King sat there for hours, drinking and watching. A character was forming in his mind. A ghost bartender in an empty hotel. A man who serves drinks to lonely souls. A man named Lloyd. The first piece of the puzzle. He returned to his room. His wife was sleeping. He lay down beside her. He closed his eyes. And that was when the dream began. The dream that would change literature forever. In the dream, his small son was running through the hotel, screaming. Something was chasing it. A fire hose torn from the wall, slithering after the child like a serpent, malevolent, conscious, hungry for a small boy. He woke at 3 in the morning, the hour of Elizabeth, the hour of ghosts. He walked to the window and lit a cigarette. He stared out at the mountains, and in the time it took to smoke that single cigarette, an entire novel formed in his head. Not pieces of a novel, not fragments. The entire thing, beginning, middle, end. The Overlook Hotel, the Torrance family, the ghostly twins, room 237, a father's descent into madness. All of it downloaded into him in a single moment. He wrote until dawn. When the sun came up, he had outlined one of the greatest horror novels ever written. He titled it The Shining. Published in 1977, it would sell millions of copies. It would make him the master of horror. But here is what King has always said. He didn't invent that story. He simply wrote down what the hotel showed him. The Stanley was the author. He was only the typist. And other guests have had their own visions. Because Elizabeth is not alone here. She is simply the most famous. The Stanley is home to dozens of spirits. Some friendly, some mischievous, some deeply dangerous. Let me tell you about the others. F.O. Stanley himself never left. Guests see him most often in the lobby and billiard room. A tall gentleman with a white mustache, perfectly dressed. He nods politely. Then he disappears. He is still overseeing his dream. In the billiard room, he still plays his favorite game. Cue balls roll across empty. Balls sink into pockets by themselves. The smell of cigar smoke drifts through the air, even though smoking has been banned here for decades. And in the ballroom, his wife Flora plays for him still. She was an accomplished pianist in life. She performed for guests every evening. She died in 1939, but the music never stopped. Security guards have recorded the piano on camera, over and over, playing by itself. Always the same songs Flora performed a century ago. Classical pieces from the Edwardian age. Music that no one in this century has heard in a concert hall. Now we climb higher, to the 4th floor, a place staff members avoid after dark. A place where you can hear them, even when no one is there, the children. The 4th floor belongs to the children. A century ago, the 4th floor was servants' quarter. The children of staff lived here. They played in these halls, ran through these rooms. Some of them died here, of illness, of accident, and some of them never left. Room 401 is their favorite. Guests who stay here wake up to small handprints on the mirror, toys rearranged on the nightstand, the closet door opening and closing. Sometimes, a small voice asking, "Do you want to play?" A woman from Chicago, staying in room 401 in 2018, felt a child sit down beside her on the bed. When she turned, she saw him. A small, transparent boy in early 1900s clothing. He smiled. He asked if she would read to him. She didn't scream. She didn't run. She spoke gently to him. She asked his name. He said something she couldn't quite catch. Then he was gone. She says he was the sweetest ghost she ever met. She returns every year to visit him. But not every spirit here is friendly. Step outside the main hotel. Walk across the lawn, to the old concert hall, a building Flora Stanley built as a gift to her husband, a building that holds the darkest energy on the property. The concert hall has been host to weddings, concerts, funerals, seances. Every year, paranormal investigators come here with their equipment, and every year, they leave with evidence that defies science. Because the concert hall has Paul. Paul was a handyman who worked here in the 1970s. He loved this concert hall. He considered it his personal kingdom. He had 2 rules: no running. No staying past closing time. When he died, suddenly, in his sleep, he kept enforcing those rules. Modern ghost hunters come here regularly. They arrive confident. They leave shaking. Because Paul does not like strangers in his concert hall past midnight. And Paul has ways of making that clear. They have recorded his voice hundreds of times. Always the same phrases. Get out. Stop that. No running. He plays with their equipment. He slams doors. He is still on shift. He is still doing his job. Paul shares his kingdom with someone else. In the concert hall basement lives Lucy, a young homeless girl who secretly lived here in the 1980s. She died here, alone, cold, only 17 years old, and she is still waiting for someone to find her. Guests who descend into the basement feel her immediately. A sadness, a loneliness. Most people cry when they meet Lucy. She doesn't want to scare anyone. She just wants company. She wants someone to sit beside her in the dark. Behind the hotel lies another secret, a tiny cemetery, not for people, for pets. Generations of famous guests buried their beloved animals here. Dogs, cats, birds, even a pet monkey, and some of them still run free on the property. Guests walking at night report small, ghostly animals. A terrier that follows them across the lawn. A cat that rubs against their legs. A bird that lands briefly on their shoulder. The pets of the past still love their visitors. Now we descend into the oldest part of the Stanley, the underground tunnel. Built in 1909 so that servants could move between buildings without being seen by guests. Today, it is the most haunted space on the entire property. Paranormal investigators consider this tunnel one of the most active sites in the United States. Temperatures drop 30 degrees without explanation. Shadows move on their own. Voices whisper in languages no one recognizes. The recordings are terrifying. Dozens of voices layered on top of each other. Voices calling for help. Voices warning to leave. Voices that seem to know the names of the investigators, even when those investigators have never been here before. Back in the hotel, there is one more spirit you must know about, a dangerous one. His name was Lord Dunraven, an Irish nobleman who claimed this land long before F.O. Stanley. He tried to steal it from the first settlers. He failed. He never forgave. Lord Dunraven's spirit now haunts room 407. He is particularly drawn to female guests. They report his presence most often. Breath on the neck, fingers running through their hair, jewelry moving on its own. They are not imagining it. Guests have seen him in the mirror, tall, mustachioed, in Victorian evening dress. He stares at them from behind, never speaking. Psychic mediums who have visited room 407 describe him the same way every time. He is angry. He is possessive. He is still here. Most women who experience Lord Dunraven leave the room immediately. Staff are used to it. They offer another room without asking questions, because they know. They have seen what he does, and they do not argue with him. In 1997, something incredible happened. Stephen King returned to the Stanley to film his own television adaptation of his novel. For the first time, the real hotel would play itself. He shot scenes in the very hallways where he had dreamed his masterpiece 23 years earlier. Strange things began to happen on set immediately. Lights exploded without warning. Cameras malfunctioned even when they were brand new. Crew members reported being touched by invisible hands. The hotel did not want to be played. The hotel wanted to perform. The young actor who played the psychic boy, Danny, reported seeing children in hallways that were supposed to be empty. He described them to his mother in detail. Clothing from the early 1900s, faces he could not forget. He had nightmares for years after filming ended. Today, the hotel embraces its legacy. Every Halloween, thousands gather here for what they call the Shining Ball, a massive masquerade inspired by Kubrick's film, the largest horror event in America. And the ghosts, they say, attend too. Guests often report seeing couples dancing in period-appropriate clothing, so perfect it seems impossible. They blend into the costumed crowd. They dance with grace. They disappear at midnight. Some believe it is F.O. Stanley and Flora, dancing at the ball they built. By morning, the hotel always returns to normal, or what passes for normal here. Staff arrive for work. Guests check in. The machinery of hospitality continues. But every employee knows. Every one of them has a story. A housekeeper named Maria has worked here for 22 years. She says she sees something almost every day. She is no longer afraid. She simply says good morning to the spirits. She thanks them when they move out of her way. She treats them as co-workers. She says she works with Elizabeth Wilson every single day. Elizabeth shows her where dust has gathered. Elizabeth helps her make the beds. Elizabeth points out when a guest has left something behind. Two housekeepers, a century apart, still cleaning the same rooms. So what is the Stanley Hotel? A building, yes. A piece of American history. A monument to a dying man who found his miracle in the mountains. But also something more. A place where the dead have never quite left. A place where time bends. Stephen King wrote only one novel here. One night in one room. But the hotel has been writing its own novel for over 100 years. Every guest adds a chapter. Every spirit contributes a line. The story has never ended. The room is waiting. Elizabeth is waiting. They are all waiting for the next guest to open this door, for the next person to walk in and think they are alone, for the next story to begin. Some guests leave this hotel shaken. Some leave laughing. Some leave in tears. But almost all of them leave with the same feeling, that something about them changed here, that they came here alone and somehow they left accompanied. The Stanley Hotel still stands. It is still accepting reservations. Room 217 is still the most requested room in America, booked solid, a year in advance. You can stay there. You can sleep where Stephen King dreamed. You can meet Elizabeth. The question is only this: would you go? Would you spend a single night in the room that birthed The Shining? Would you lie in the bed where Elizabeth sleeps between couples? Would you listen for Flora's piano after midnight? Because here is the strangest truth about the Stanley. You do not have to believe in ghosts to go there. But by the time you leave, you will. And some part of you, they say, will never leave at all.